Hello, everyone. Welcome to this talk. We're going to be talking about navigation in Flutter and more specifically about the not so obvious parts of it. We're going to walk through the different things you can do when you're navigating, because let's face it, navigation is ubiquitous. Every app needs it, but not each and every app needs it in the same way. Not all apps, not all kinds of apps have the same needs. Just like for navigation, the same goes for other things in software development. You should know all the possibilities you have and then pick and choose according to your project's needs. So hey, I'm Matt, also known as Rešetár. I'm a Flutter developer at LeanCode. And let's begin straight away with the most basic imperative navigation that you all have seen a million times. Really nothing fancy here. We just have a material app, a home route. We provide a home screen widget over here in this case. And then when you want to navigate, you say Navigator of context push, and you directly instantiate both the material page route or Cupertino page route, and also you instantiate the widget, which in this case is the second screen, because we want to go to the second screen. So this is the most rudimentary, most basic, nothing fancy approach. And one problem with this is that unless you do something about it, you have too much code repetition, because basically every time you want to navigate somewhere, you need to instantiate material page route, your widget where you want to navigate. It's just repetitive, and it bloats up your app. It's not very developer friendly, but for small apps, it may be just what you need, right? And then to navigate back from the second screen, we pop the route. I mean, this is the most basic navigation you can have. And as you can see, it works, but especially on the web, the address bar is not updating, and the back button on the web browser sometimes works, like we have just seen, but then it breaks and the forward button doesn't work, and it's just, with Flutter developers, we know that, okay, this is a Flutter web app, it's not working properly, it doesn't have proper navigation setup, but when your usual user sees this, they're gonna be like, I guess this is just a total mess of an app. They will not understand what's going on. So not great, address bar is not updating at all. We need to find a better solution if you need it. But if you are building a simple mobile app, this may be all you need. So the next thing we're gonna look at is named imperative navigation. So we're still staying within the imperative paradigm, otherwise known also as Navigator 1.0. And we can have the ungenerated route callback in the material app, and we're gonna match for the paths. So / will take us to home screen, / second will take us to the second screen. Again, very basic, but at least now we have the benefit that we don't need to instantiate over and over and over again the material page routes and our screen widgets when we want to navigate. Instead, navigating is as simple as just pushing named and then providing the location. In this case, it's / second. So there is some benefit. We are having less code repetition in our code base, which is good, but still it works exactly the same way as before. You can see that the browser back and forward buttons are broken. The address bar is not being updated. So yes, we have simplified our life a bit as a developer. We have named routes, but still nothing of a benefit, not a single benefit added as opposed to the previous shown case to the user, to the end user of the web app. So let's take a look at yet another imperative navigation approach. And this time it's going to support basic address bar updates. So it's gonna be kind of better. And this approach is of course the third one, where you can match your named routes using Navigator 1.0 with a map of routes as opposed to the ungenerated route callback in your material app. So you set up your routes, again, / matches to home screen, / second matches to second screen. There's Nothing more to it. And also, we are starting on the second screen. The initial route now is the second route, right, as you can see. So we start off at the second route. We can navigate back. The buttons of the browser are again broken, but the address bar is updating. We have the /2 there, but it's again broken. And there's one more thing that's broken. We have just started this new tab on the browser, and we can immediately navigate back. That's weird, right? Because we have just opened up this browser tab. It's a brand new tab. We started at our app /2. That's the initial URL that was input in this browser tab, but we could still, right from the start, use the browser back button to navigate back. And this is not the usual experience that our users are used to when using any kind of websites or web apps. Because let's take, for example, that we start at LeanCode.co/blog. /blog is sort of a subpage of LeanCode.co, but we cannot navigate back right from the get-go. We can only navigate back once we open up some sort of a blog post, and now we can navigate back. But we cannot navigate back to LeanCode.co without the /blog, because we have never opened it in this browser tab. So it kind of makes sense, but the code which we have seen here does not support this sort of usual way of working for the back browser button. So what's the solution to all of these issues? Which again, you may have noticed that these issues arise really only mostly for web apps. So unless you are building for Flutter Web, you may not need to go full declarative with Go Router and have all of this, let's face it, added boilerplate. This boilerplate is great if you need it, but if you don't, you may as well stay with imperative navigation for your more simple app navigation needs. But let's say you're fed up with this, you're building a Flutter Web app, you need to have everything working properly, you need to have proper support for deep links, you cannot have broken back and not working at all forward button in a web browser. So what can you do? Declarative navigation to the rescue. And we're going to be talking about Go Router here, but of course there are other approaches, other packages like auto routes and others. You can even implement it yourself. But Go Router is sort of de facto the standard. So once we have that in our dependencies, we will now sort of naively try to translate the imperative code we had into Go Router, and then we'll see not the naive, but actually the proper way of doing things. But just naively going at it, we previously had two routes, / and /2. So again, here we are gonna do the same thing. Of course, now we have material app.router constructor. We need to use the router constructor in order to work with Navigator 2.0. And we specify the router config, and we provide both of our routes as sort of equal in this single list of routes right beside each other. We have Go route for the / and Go route for /2. And inside of the home screen, when we want to navigate to the second screen, we no longer use push, but we instead call the go method, extension method on the context. And again, to navigate back, we don't pop, but we call go and specify the precise path. In this case, we want to navigate precisely to the home screen, so we provide just the / where we want to navigate back. So this is the naive approach, and let's see how it looks like. We can see that immediately we start off in the second screen, but properly we cannot use the back browser button initially. So this is just like with the blog example that you've just seen a few minutes ago. So this is good. And the address bar is, of course, updating. We can navigate back. And also, for the first time, also the forward button works. with GoRouter or any sort of Navigator 2.0 declarative solution. So now the browser buttons are working, address bar is being updated, but do you notice that we are missing something here? Previously, we always had those app bar back buttons, right? On the app bar, we had a back button, but now it's not being displayed. So this tells us that Flutter, for some reason, cannot figure out, hey, can I display a back button here in the app bar? So how can we give the Flutter framework this knowledge that, yes, you can display actually the back button on the app bar? The answer is child routes. So because this is a declarative way of doing things, we need to declare everything, including the relationship between our routes. And this will let the Flutter framework know that, hey, you can display a back button because you can actually pop the route. So we are now making the second route a child of the first route of the home screen, so /. So now second route is nested as a child route within the route with the / path for the home screen. And with initial location still being second, when we now open up the app, we are in second, but we can immediately navigate back using the app bar back button. And also with this kind of a parent-child relationship declared in your GoRouter routes, you can also use context.pop. You can pop your routes as usual. You can, of course, use Go as well to navigate back to the home screen, but this time you can also pop the routes, and this is how also the Flutter framework knows that, hey, I can add the back button to the app bar. And let's talk also about path and query parameters. They were also possible sort of with the imperative approaches, but very cumbersome. But with declarative approach, it's very possible and easy to have path and query parameters in your URLs and to pass them over to your routes and widgets. So let's say that our second screen widget now wants to take in an ID integer and a string message. And then inside of the build method, we're gonna simply display it in a column somehow nicely, this ID and message. So if this is how the widget for the second screen constructor looks like, what can we do for our route? Well, we need to include the ID path parameter within the path. We do that with the colon ID. And then the query parameter is not being included in the path. Only the path parameters are, of course, included in the path definition. And then we sort of non-type safely needs to parse our string, which we get from a path parameters map on the state object. It's nullable, so we need to force it to be not null. And immediately I see so many red flags that it's crazy. When you see this sort of a code, you just know. You just know that either you or your coworker or somebody on an open source project is going to mess up at some point, and the integer will not be parsable because it will be some other value, not an integer. The path parameter is going to be left out. The query parameter is even going to be more left out because it's not even figuring over in the path. So it's just going to be a mess, right? So actually, that's exactly the case with what's happening right now within our example app. Because currently, we're doing this. To navigate to the second route, we just call context.go, but and /second. But this will not work anymore. We are missing the ID path parameter, which is required. We're also missing our required query parameter, but we don't get any errors. The compiler is not screaming at us. So even though we know this won't work, we need to catch it ourselves. It's not going to be called by the compiler for us. And we can just run this app as it is, and trying to navigate to the second screen fails, page not found. And of course, we can still navigate sort of manually by typing into the address bar, so /2, and also we provide the message. And here we go. So it works, but not great from the developer experience point of view. So the solution to adding type safety is using the GoRouter builder package and not defining your routes within the routes list in your material app router constructor, but you're going to define your routes as classes extending GoRoute data. The top level routes are going to be annotated with type to GoRoute annotation. So because second route is a child of the home route, we're not annotating it directly. We're only then annotating home route, and the second route is taken care of by as a child in the routes list in the type GoRoute annotation, right? So the structure of parent, child is still maintained. It's just sort of moved to a different place. And also, as you can see, the second route has two required constructor parameters, ID and message, and the code generator will take all of this and create nice generated code for us, which will, in a type-safe way, again, parse the string into integer and find the query parameter and take it from the map, but this time we cannot forget about them. And with this approach, since we are no longer working within the routes list of the material app router and GoRouter class, we need to specify the generated app routes as the routes list, right? So $app routes is the thing that's generated by the build runner. And now we at last have type safety, because to navigate to the second route, we now create the second route object, which has all of its parameters required. So we need to fill them in. We cannot simply forget about them. And then we call go on this newly created instance of the second route class. And there we go. It just will work as it should be. Now, this is just a lightning talk, so I cannot be talking about all the things, but just as a honorable mention, of course, GoRouter also supports shell routes. So those are going to be useful for all of your nested navigation needs, like when you have this sort of a nice bottom navigation bar. So it's going to create separate navigators for your subroutes, basically. So you can use shell route, and it has a very good documentation about how to use it. And just as I mentioned, if you don't want to use GoRouter for declarative navigation, you can also use other packages like the AutoRoute. I believe that after GoRouter, since it's de facto standard, it's supported by Google directly, AutoRoute is sort of the second go-to package, at least in my eyes, for the community as a whole. And it's also great. It also supports shell routes. AutoRoute is very much on par feature to feature with GoRouter, but it has different approach, and it might be just what you need. Maybe it's gonna have a nicer syntax for you, a nicer way of doing things. So what's the moral of the story? It is that you should know everything about navigation, and then based on your project needs, pick and choose which parts you are going to use in your app, because way too many times we may be tempted as developers to future-proof and when it's not really needed. And for a small app, select a enterprise solution and then spend more time on it than necessary. So yeah, maybe sometimes it's enough to have your basic navigation, imperative way of navigation, but for large projects, definitely declarative is more than recommended. And also I would like to invite you all during party this evening to our LeanCode booth, where you can participate in the LeanCode and Friends Flutter quiz. So definitely stop by, because you can win amazing prizes, which are mystery prizes. But definitely stop by at 6:30 p.m. We're starting off, kicking things off at the LeanCode booth. So we're gonna be very happy to see you over there. But you don't need to wait until then, until 6:30, because LeanCode booth is right over there as you go out the doors. And you can stop by even right now and discover our Flutter packages, tackle code challenges, perhaps win some prizes as well. And also you can be on the Flutter open source contributors wall if you so desire. So definitely stop by. We'd love to chat with you. Thank you.